Goodnight Punpun. Goodnight Punpun follows Punpun Punyama, tracing his life from childhood into early adulthood. Punpun and his family are depicted as simplistic bird-like figures, while everyone else appears realistic. This visual contrast immediately sets Punpun apart, emphasizing his emotional disconnect from the world. From a young age, Punpun is exposed to instability at home. His parents' relationship deteriorates, marked by neglect and emotional harm. Though Punpun doesn't fully understand what's happening, the damage settles quietly into his psyche. As he grows older, Punpun becomes increasingly aware of his own ordinariness. His dreams shrink as he realizes he may never become exceptional. This realization arrives far too early, corroding his sense of self. His childhood crush, Aiko Tanaka, becomes a symbol of lost innocence and possibility rather than a real person. During adolescence, Punpun's inner voice grows cruel and self-destructive. He becomes consumed by insecurity, resentment, and guilt over thoughts he doesn't know how to handle. The story refuses to excuse his behavior, instead presenting a painful examination of how trauma can explain actions without justifying them. In adulthood, Punpun drifts through low-paying work, clinging to the hope of reconnecting with Aiko as a way to give his life meaning. His relationship with Sachi Nanjo, an ambitious artist, briefly offers direction, but Sachi chooses her future over sacrificing herself for him, grounding the story in harsh realism. As Punpun's mental state deteriorates, his physical depiction becomes more abstract, reflecting his inner collapse. The world around him continues moving, indifferent to his suffering. The series becomes a haunting meditation on self-loathing, responsibility, and the quiet devastation of growing up without ever learning how to live. Blood on the Tracks. Blood on the Tracks, Chi no Wadachi, is a psychological horror manga by Shuzo Oshimi, the same creator behind Flowers of Evil. It ran from 2017 to 2023 in Big Comic Superior and concluded at 17 volumes. The story centers on Seiichi Osabe, a quiet, emotionally reserved middle school boy living an unremarkable life. On the surface, everything seems normal, especially his bond with his mother, Seiko Osabe. She's intensely attentive and protective, but Seiichi doesn't interpret this as something unhealthy. To him, her presence feels warm and reassuring. Her closeness feels like safety. That fragile sense of normalcy shatters during a family hiking trip. While walking near a cliff, Seiichi's cousin Shigeru jokingly pushes him toward the edge. It's careless, not cruel, but Seiko reacts instantly, yanking Seiichi back in a panic. The family laughs it off, embarrassed by her reaction. Later that day, Seiichi and Shigeru wander to a higher, more dangerous part of the cliff. Seiko appears behind them. Without raising her voice, without hesitation, she pushes Shigeru off the edge. Then she turns to Seiichi and smiles calmly, as if nothing has happened. Shigeru survives, but remains in a coma. Seiichi becomes the only witness, and the only one who knows the truth. From that moment on, the story stops being about the incident itself, and becomes about what that knowledge does to Seiichi. He doesn't tell anyone. He barely allows himself to understand it. Instead, he continues living under his mother's shadow as her love slowly reveals its true nature. What once felt protective becomes suffocating. Seiko isolates him, reshapes his memories, controls his fear, and twists his sense of reality, all while framing everything as care. The horror of Blood on the Tracks isn't violence. It's watching a child grow up emotionally imprisoned by the person who claims to love him most. It's a story about how love, when distorted, can become more terrifying than hatred. The Drifting Classroom. The drifting classroom begins when an elementary school is suddenly transported to a desolate wasteland. Cut off from civilization, the children struggle with hunger, fear, and despair. Led by Sho Takamatsu, the students attempt to survive as order slowly collapses. Outside the wasteland, parents search desperately for answers, haunted by guilt and regret. The horror emerges not from monsters but from the breakdown of innocence under extreme conditions. Ichi the Killer. Ichi the Killer explores violence as emotional expression rather than spectacle. Ichi is a fragile, deeply traumatized young man manipulated into committing brutal acts during moments of psychological collapse. Parallel to him is Kakihara, a sadistic enforcer seeking sensation through pain. Their paths spiral toward each other, creating a disturbing contrast between submission and indulgence. The story questions whether violence is imposed by circumstance or embraced as identity, refusing to offer clean answers.